had purchased a home in Altadena, and that sadly burned to the ground along with the whole neighborhood. Houses are really there to support us and nurture us and uphold us. It's not just a house, it's like a very sacred space. I would kind of go around your house and think about like, where are the main places that you're spending the most time in? Yeah, there's like trends that come and go, but we're also kind of in this time that feels like anything can go, right? Like there's so much
true. As long as it's done very tasteful and how you like it.
Yeah, totally.
Welcome back to The Long Game. We're beyond excited to welcome Tatum Kendrick, founder and creative director of Tatum Kendrick Design, to the show. She is our interior designer for our Pasadena house, and her work is nothing short of transformative. A nationally renowned interior designer, she's celebrated for her ability to craft stunning, functional spaces that truly connect on an emotional level. Her projects have graced the pages of Architectural Digest, Vogue, The Wall Street Journal, solidifying her reputation as one of the industry's most innovative leaders, and we're so excited to have her here today.
I'm so excited to be here, guys. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So as of today, when recording this, it is January 16th. The LA fires are still very much raging, and Tatum has a personal experience too with the fires.
Yes. So I had purchased a home in Altadena that was a historical estate, and we were, very carefully kind of rehabbing that and restoring that, like with plans to put it back on the market, and that sadly burned to the ground along with the whole neighborhood. So, that's been pretty devastating, but we've been, our plan is to rebuild and also to help support the community to rebuild as well. It was, a very historically significant neighborhood. And it's important for the design community in LA to really be able to build something that has integrity, and it has history, and it has a soul, and it has spirit. So our office is, working on, doing everything we can to support the community in that way.
What do they say for your particular property? Did you have fire insurance?
I did have fire insurance. Because it was a construction property, I had something called a builder's risk policy. So I didn't have traditional homeowners. I had it through Lloyd's of London. They've been amazing. I've already gotten approval.
Oh, wow.
And so, they're really trying to fast track and support, everybody that's in this situation, at least Lloyd's is. So that is already approved and on its way. And I was actually at Building and Safety this morning, just trying to gather more information on like what are the next steps. Currently, as of today, we still can't get access to the house.
It's all blocked off.
It's all blocked off. They have the National Guard like blocking all the roads. Like you can't even get in there. Even if your house is still standing, like in that zone, it's just almost impossible to get in there. So there isn't information about access yet. We still don't know. But what was released is that FEMA is going to be responsible for the cleanup both in Altadena and in the Palisades because it is highly toxic.
Now, what makes it toxic? The building materials?
The building materials, that's, I think, the difference between like a normal wildfire in the forest versus a residential fire is that there's so much toxicity in the building materials. Like if you think about all of the glues, all of the plastics, asbestos, like some of these older homes had a lot of asbestos in them, copper wires, there's like everything burned, so all of the ash is considered toxic. So they do not want residences disturbing that or, blowing up dust or, it can't also be disposed in like a normal landfill. So it's much like if you found asbestos in your home during a renovation,
which we did in
ours and yours. You have to have special crews that know how to handle the material, and then that has to be brought to a special site. So we don't know how long that's going to take or when they're going to start that cleanup, but that is definitely like step one.
What do they say for the toxicity about like our rental house in San Marino, but our actual houses in Pasadena?
What is the radius on?
The air quality? There haven't been any official reports from the city, but from there was a couple Zooms last night that my friends were on that were from scientists that are, specialized in toxic cleanup, and basically it doesn't look great. I think the AQI, the index that we all have on our phones is only measuring the particulates, but it's not picking up on ash and it's not picking up on VOCs, which are the toxic fumes, much like a paint. So Even though the air quality might say good, it's actually not great.
And that's where I was getting confused because she was saying we shouldn't be going outside.
He's so congested right now, and it just started since the fires.
Same. A lot of people.
Yeah.
And like shortness of breath, nosebleeds. And it is confusing because there isn't any real official information.
How do you measure it?
And some people aren't even wearing N95 masks out there, which make you feel like are we being
paranoid?
Right?
Or I know. I mean, even walking here today, it's like I'm like, oh shit, I forgot my mask. So, but yeah, I mean, the scientists last night were saying that everything is up in the upper atmosphere and that it hasn't even dropped yet, and it will. And then also when the FEMA is doing the cleanup, that's when everything's going to get kicked up again, and it's going to be very high toxicity. Basically, scientist who was speaking last night was saying, because of the nature of the geographic location of LA, and we're kind of in this bowl because we're all kind of in that same like atmospheric bubble. I'm also, like my house, I have an old mid-century with like single pane glass, and when I came back because I was evacuated, like there was dirt and debris, and I'm like, how did this get in the house? Because I have those slatted windows, so like it's not like it's sealed,
right?
So. Yeah.
Just a lot it's just like that.
A lot
plus
to take
the aftermath is a lot too, because it's now the whole city is suffering. It's not just, it's the people that, I mean, first and foremost, lost everything, lost their homes.
Right. Totally. And then you think about the water table, right? They're recommending us not drink the water. And like, thankfully I have like a bottled like water service that comes from like pristine, springs that I've always used. And
which one do you use?
Alive water.
Oh. Writing that down.
Okay. But yeah, and you just think about like, I don't know, planting a garden or eating the lemons or, how is this like the long-term knock-on effect of Southern California, and I just don't think we're going to have this information for years.
Yeah. And with 9/11, with all that happened, the amount of cancer that from the immediate circle of the first responders, and especially the first.
The cleanup crews.
And to see the cancer rising in that, it's just like it's going to trickle out to so many different things that we may not ever be able to pinpoint it to these fires, but could be like
a contributor.
Right. Yeah, the tipping point.
So how do you feel about the rebuild for your place? Are you going to rebuild?
Our plan is to rebuild. I think that once the ground is cleared from FEMA, we can come in and hopefully use the existing foundational wall there. The city is really trying to fast track rebuilds. And if you're building it in the same likeness, like i.e. the same footprint that was there, they are passing the permits through within 30 days is what they're saying.
Nice.
So they're really trying to expedite that process, which is great.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I mean, I'm trying to find the silver linings, I do want to build it in the same style because I want to do right by like the historical nature of what the home was. But, we're going to improve upon it a few ways. Like some of the windows were a little small or in odd places. So, but that is our plan to rebuild.
You said with the rebuild, Are they enforcing any of the historical homes that were there before, or not really because they burned down?
I think only if it was like already a home of historical record, then perhaps you'd have to go through a design review. But there, I'm on text change and calls with a lot of other designers and architects in the community, and we are really concerned about maintaining like the integrity of architecture in Altadena because it was such a historical neighborhood, and we don't want to end up with a lot of white
like
Home Depot
LA
boxes.
2.0.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, but nothing official has been stated. I think it's just kind of us as a community, like banding together and kind of reaching out. Like there's a family that my son went to school with from like kindergarten to 6th grade, and they lost their home in Altadena. And so I reached out to them, and I'm going to help them and hold their hand through the build process because so many people are, it's overwhelming process, as you guys know.
I mean, our permits took so long, and we weren't even in
so long, and like where do you even begin, and how do you even budget, and like how do you vet a good contractor, or how do I even know the process? And I think we are going to be inundated with so much building that I want to make sure that people are having good experiences and sharks aren't coming in and trying to take advantage of people. And
do you think there would be enough resources though if everyone starts to kind of rebuild based on contractors, or would they be pulling from other areas of the state coming down?
I think that we're going to be short on labor. I think that's going to be it really, as far as materiality, like, raw materials, like during COVID, we really had a shortage, but that was global, right? So this is very localized. So I'm not sure what the knock-on effect will be. The executive order that the governor put out is, basically putting a moratorium on price gouging. I don't know, but like they are trying to like have stopgaps to control that. But yeah, I think it's going to be a long process. I think it's going to be like 3 to 5 years to build back. And our studio we've put ourselves on like the expert so that we can for like free consultations. So if people want to just talk to me for an hour for free, and I can try to point them in the right direction with anything that they need or give them recommendations, like we're just trying to give back and support as much as we can with the skill set that we have.
Do you think any houses that burn down, if they had insurance, they would opt to not rebuild? Like, will there be gaps and just burn down places and someone has a regular standing house?
I think they're estimating about probably a half to 2/3 will rebuild and the others will not. So there will be some empty lots that are going up for sale, and that is another concern because it's like, who's buying those lots? What is the integrity of who's buying those lots and what are they building?
They can't put an apartment in, right? Or
possibly they could, and that might not be a bad thing because there was already such a housing shortage in LA anyhow.
I was just thinking architecture-wise, but
yeah, and like I think there's a way to do beautiful multifamily, like Spanish, multi-residences. It doesn't have to be, the boxes on top of boxes that we're seeing everywhere that's just kind of soul destroying. But I think that, there's just a lot of, I think, opportunity there. And I think it's trying to minimize the opportunists, right? And just like really just allowing things to get rebuilt with integrity.
I love that.
Yeah.
How do you see do you see Pasadena being affected by that? Like, as far as
I don't know. I don't really know how much was burned in Pasadena.
Yeah,
I think it was mostly Altadena.
It was mostly Altadena. I was just thinking about like any building permits, or are they going to fast track for people who are like trying to rebuild? Like, say they bought something that was older in Pasadena or surrounding cities to try to get into something that's livable and then redo it. Not sure if the permits would be because it was such a long process in Pasadena for us that it was. There's only like wasn't there only one person working the permit, 2 people working it there?
Yeah.
It's very slow.
It was very short staff. And I asked them this morning, I was like, are you guys planning to staff up? And the answer was yes. And they're trying to bring in more people,
That's good.
And then on our plans, we were told that like when we resubmit, because we already have a building permit, so it's like, okay, do we need a new building permit? And we have to put in like fire rebuild. So they're classifying like the homes that were affected by the fires directly. And then those are getting fast track. I think if you're just not affected, I think you're still in the regular queue probably. That might go a little bit slower,
Yeah.
So, but I think they are trying to, do everything they can because they realize the tidal wave of new builds that are going to be needing to get through, so permitted. So it's unprecedented.
Yeah.
It truly is.
Yeah.
What would you say is the first thing you notice when you walk into a space, and how can listeners train their eye to identify what's working or what needs to be redone, or maybe they can swap certain things?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I feel like when I first walk into a space, and when I think about when I'm designing a space, is like, what are your main visual sight lines? Like when you walk through the front door into your entryway, like what is the first thing that you're looking at? Because that's going to really set the tone for how you're feeling energetically entering into your house. Personally, I don't like a lot of clutter. Like I like it to be pretty like minimal but beautiful. So, if your first visual is a console, like let there be something really beautiful to be looking at, to like that's going to draw your eye to that piece. So whether that's like a lamp or a sculpture or a piece of art. So I would kind of go around your house and think about like, where are the main places that you're spending the most time in? If it's like sitting on your sofa, like what are you looking at? If it's standing in the kitchen cooking, like what are you looking at? And from there, really try to clean that up as much as possible. And by cleaning that up is like, is there a lot of clutter around? Like, do you need to kind of, rejudge the paintings or what have you? So I think it's really like starting there and seeing how much information is coming into your eye in terms of like stuff and objects. And then, go from there.
What would you say that you helped us with our Pasadena remodel, that like what were the main things that you really focused on with that particular house? As far as, because I remember when we talked about the entryway, the same thing was like a little bit of greenery, and you said it really calms when you walk in. And those are things that I just never would think of when
Yeah.
Even if I was to go and try to redo, I mean, even we have a rental and I tried to design, I was
I think
texting
you
you
did a
like,
pretty good
is this
job.
normal? Does this look right? Like sometimes I second guess if this looks good or if I'm like,
Or you're being
I like
artsy
it.
and you're like,
I'm like, I'm
just a
artsy,
little
but
off
this
to
one
the
it's like
yeah.
it's chaotic. Like, how do you know if you just if you have the design or not?
I think it's really paying attention to how you feel in your body. I mean, for me, it all comes back to energetics. It's like I want to make a house that feels serene and calming and protective, right? And I think that if you walk into the space and you can, like, your shoulders can drop and you can kind of like breathe out a little bit versus like you walk in and you're just like, oh my God, I have to do X, Y, and Z because like it's stressing you out. So I think it's like pay attention to your body and really just I think, for example, at your house, walking into the entryway, I really believe that that's like your first point of contact with the house and you want to kind of leave the outside world outside and you want to feel like refreshed. And so I love using natural materials. I love using things that feel more organic, things that are kind of more in tune with our natural like biogeometry of space. So just, selecting things like that just feel a little bit more like down level, especially living in a major urban city where we're like fighting traffic and really busy. I think for people in LA, it's really important.
That's why we loved our house so much is it felt like a little oasis when it was surrounded by the greenery. It's a calm
hill.
there.
Yeah.
Kind of escape and get away. Would you say kind of if someone wanted to refresh their house, number one, start with the color paint?
Yeah, I think paint, I always say, is like you get the most impact with like the least amount of budget. I think paint really does wonders for a space. And, there's a lot of science and studies out there about, everything in this world and earth, not to get too whatever, but it has a vibrational signature. And so different colors also have a vibrational signature. Some are more calming, like blues and greens, and like yellows are very activating and which are great for some spaces, but it's really about what is the space and how do you want to feel in that space? Like, is it a very active, like family-oriented kitchen where it's going to be like busy mornings and you're going to be like have a lot of high energy, or is it like the den where you just want to like chill out and light the fire and, read a book or however you want to live your life. And so I think, once you know how you want to feel inside of that space, then you can select a color that kind of supports that the most. And I know colors can be really overwhelming.
So overwhelming. We went through that trying to do that one space, and I was going, like, it took me forever to decide on that because, okay, so if you want your bedroom to be calming, what color? Just give me a color. Do you know a color off the top of your head that I could?
I mean, I like the tertiary colors, which means they're like in between colors. If you think about the color wheel, it's like in between like two, like the 12 and the 9. It's
don't know at all.
Okay, yeah. So it's colors that are kind of like
fading,
like a cream,
fading out of one and going into another, like that.
It's like, is it
middle
brown?
zone.
Is it red? Like you kind of get, it's like kind of
example,
like skirting on the line.
just give me
Because we went with
give me
like a white that's
Okay.
fading into like a warm white. I don't know.
I get really confused with all the whites. But if you didn't have, okay.
I think like a mushroom color.
mushroom, okay.
Like mushroom.
So
Like
that's what you do for your bedroom.
like like it's like a brownie, taupey,
I love that.
tanny, like something in there, like that could feel really just like a cocoon or like an something that is like enveloping you. Also like rosy, kind of like dirty pinks, kind of Etruscan,
love.
like faded pinks. I like to use companies that don't have a zillion colors. Like I love Benjamin Moore because I know
Okay.
that color deck, but I use their OC colors because there's only maybe like 30 colors in there. It's all their off-white colors. And so from that, like you're going to get a pretty good pick. Or their historical color collection from Benjamin Moore is like another safe bet because a lot of those colors, they've just had a little bit more like historical use. And so it's like a little bit safer. Whereas if you go to like the thousands of other colors, it could just be a little bit too bright. Also, I love House of Hackney. They just came out with their own paint color collection.
That's the wallpaper from Elliot's room, right?
Yes.
So beautiful.
It's so beautiful. So they came up with this paint color collection to kind of match all their wallpapers, but their paints are stunning. I just used I think we pulled like 12 different colors for a house we just did in Silver Lake. And it was a super fast track, so I couldn't even paint the samples on the wall. We just didn't even have time. So I was just like, we're just doing this. And every room was stunning.
Oh
So
my
like if
God.
you can use like a compacted collection like that, like I feel like every color is going to be on point. Like Pharaoh and Ball is another example of that. Pharaoh and Ball I feel like is a little bit more historical and maybe a little bit more dated. So like you've got to
Okay.
be a little bit careful with
That's
some
what I
of
did
those
in
colors.
the rental house. I
That
do
was
notice
all,
the paints
yeah.
were very expensive.
Yeah, they are more expensive, and they're basically called like full spectrum paints. So basically, they have
They went on really nice.
they on really nice, and they change a lot depending on the light quality. So in the morning, they're going to look completely different than they do at night. So
My
as
one regret with doing the rental house, like painting the walls, is in our room, I wish we did some other color because I did like a very safe, warm white from Pharaoh and Ball. And I'm like, I could have just done something more fun in here. We're only living in it we're still living in it right now. But
And
I
every
could have
other
had more
room
fun.
has a different color.
I know.
And we just went
Poppy's
with
room
like
is
a
this,
warm
like,
white.
fun pink.
Yeah.
Elliot's room, well, you helped us design Elliot's room. That was not all us. But that has the wallpaper in there and it's beautiful.
Green.
But the only room that's like the most white, I would say, is our bedroom. And I kind of feel like, we should have had more fun with that.
It's kind of like, meh,
Mushroom would have been so fun.
should have went with mushroom
I know.
next time.
So what is one thing that when you have a client, what is the one big thing that they're like trying to overcome with their house that they hired you for specifically? I know the foundational things, but like I'm talking about more of like styling it afterwards.
Yeah, I just think people, people know what they like oftentimes, but they don't know how to pull it all together. It's like they know they like this piece and that piece and maybe that piece, but they don't know how to make like a cohesive feeling that feels like it all works together. So I feel like oftentimes that's what we're, aside from interior architecture and all the other stuff, like if we're just doing interior design and furniture, I feel like that's kind of where people get stuck. Also, some people aren't great with color and some people aren't great with scale. Like it's hard to choose a sofa if you have, that fits well and you get it into the house and like, oh wait, this is like way too huge. Like it takes up way too much space. So I think scale and volume of furniture pieces is challenging for people.
That's really challenging for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard for me too. I think it's like, I've been doing this for so long, I can look at a plan and I can know that scale is going to work. But sometimes if it's like a really fat sofa or something, it's one of the harder things to like wrap your head around.
The amount of Amazon products that we've had to return because you buy it and you're like, wait, why is it this tiny?
Smallest lamp I've ever seen in my life. Like, is this a doll lamp?
Yeah.
I'm just terrible. I'm like, maybe I should read the dimensions.
Right.
But I do think that's been the biggest blessing of working with you has been you giving us, okay, so you'll say, we'll meet with you and you'll say, here's the 4 things that I think would be really nice in here. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
So you're doing all the work, you're doing all the sourcing, and you're giving us these really informed decisions of why you think this would be really good for the space. But also, you know us so well now. You know exactly what we like and what I'm going to say a hard no to. But it is the sourcing is like, if you wanted to get a custom couch, where do I even go to get that?
Totally.
Like, I don't even know where to source that from.
And how do you even make a custom couch? Like,
Right.
what's the seat depth? What's the fill cushion? Like, what,
I don't know any of that.
how do you put what fabric should you choose because you have kids or you have dogs or, yeah. So I think it's like holding hands and giving you options because ultimately, obviously, it's your house. You want to be comfortable there. It's your choice at the end. But we're just trying to kind of edit and, narrow it down for you so that you can make the best decision possible. I also really try to help clients know how to apply their budgets because people are spending so much money and these are really big purchases that are going to last them a really long time. And, there's so much great options out there with like big box designers like CB2 and West Elm, but it's not going to hold its value forever, right? And it's not going to maybe like last forever with the way that it's constructed. So it's really like, okay, where do we splurge? Where can we not? Like, how do we stretch your budget as much as possible and like really give you something that looks amazing and is going to like last as long as possible.
That's something I really appreciated with you is you really stuck to our budget and you were very good about saying this is what we can do, this is what we can cut. And I think from going through our first house experience, there was no sticking to any budget. So
it's just almost like the day-to-day. You're not thinking into the future or how the budget where it was initially and then what is that now. It's kind of like, okay, now we have this change order. Okay, we were just so focused on trying to get it done and get things decorated so we can actually live that no one was paying attention to actually the details.
Like the
the bottom
efficiency
line.
of the interior design, you have to run the business super efficiently. And I think I've really valued how on top of it you are. You meet weekly with our contractors. You're always giving me feedback. I'm never having to say, hey, like, has anyone visited the site
Hello.
in a few weeks?
Well, thank you. That's a huge, huge compliment. And yeah, we work really hard at that. I mean, I say like, we're designers, but we're more producers. Like there's so much information gathering and project management that goes into it. And I have an amazing team. Like Dana is just so on top of everything and such a great communicator. And yeah, it's doing a house is super labor intensive. And I don't think people really realize that, it's not just picking out like pretty sofas and cushions. It's, even if we do have a budget and we're working with all the numbers and there's like the whole purchasing side, which is like a whole other thing. But, before we even put the 3 options in front of you, like we're looking at, does it fit in the budget? We put it into a drawing. Is the scale right? Like, is this the best choice for this house? So like even before it gets to you, there's so much hours that go into that. And then once it's signed off on, then we have to, purchase it, ship it, track it, make sure it's quality control, and then we install it. So yeah, there's a lot. And that's not even with like the construction and building part of it. So yeah, you have to be really organized.
Right.
Yeah.
What are you seeing are you seeing a trend of what people are really into right now as far as when they're asking for remodels, or do you really look at it from each space where the building is, how the light comes in? Is it like really specific?
Like how the
to
house
each?
speaks to you, and then you kind of.
It really is so personal, and like the clients are so personal and individual, and the house style is so individual, and the lifestyles are so individual, and that's the part that I really love. That it's kind of a perfect blend of like psychology, sociology, and design, and psychology was kind of my background, so I love being able to marry all of that because I believe that houses are really there to support us and nurture us and uphold us, and they're like, it's not just a house, it's like a very sacred space that it's our home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lives unfold in there, and it's so personal, and I think that's really the pleasure for us, is to like design something that really supports lives.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really what turns me on with this whole thing. And of course we want to make it beautiful, but it's like so much deeper than that, from our perspective. So yeah, there's like trends that come and go, like, the cottage style right now, or like the color stories, or like different designs. But we're also kind of in this time that feels like anything can go, right? Like there's so much
true. As long as it's done very tasteful and how you like it.
Yeah, totally.
Have fun with it.
Yeah.
I follow a lot of interior design accounts, and I see some that are, color everywhere, and there's so much furniture, and then I love that. But then at the same time, like, I love the ones that are minimal,
totally.
But they have really cool lamps. So I'm like, I don't know what my design style is. Like, I mean, obviously from our house and the materials overall, but like when I save, my boards are always all over the place. Yeah. I'm like, I love a deep, dark room, and then I love a minimal room too.
Light and bright and beachy. Yeah, I think it just depends on the place. Like, I feel like Nashville will be very different from Pasadena, and, which is also part of the fun of the creativity too, right? It's almost like wardrobes for different cities or different seasons.
It's so true.
We thought about that. We're like, okay, are we going to like country this up a little bit? Yeah, it's going to be completely different.
Okay, so a few of the houses we're looking at has a lot of land, and one of my top favorites right now is built in the 2000s, so it's totally livable. We can live in it. I don't want to say like, I can never live here. It's not like some of the houses I'm looking at from the 1900s, and they truly are not livable. They don't even have a stove. They're,
right.
They
need all new systems.
Full remodel. But this one, I'm like, okay, it's cute. It has like brown floors, but it looks too like of a modern kitchen. So what do you think you would do for being Tennessee on land? Like, what would a kitchen look like there that you think would be really fun, like first thought?
Yeah, I think, my shooting a gun at a wall, I think it would just be much more country and kind of just approachable. Like, probably not as like much high marble like we do in LA, like something, maybe it would be like wooden countertops, or, something with like a shaker style door. I think it's like being informed by the place, and also with how you guys want to live. Like, I love that you're now really into like the farming and the regenerative farming. And so like, is there like, maybe it's like a, like the cold storage kind of pantries they had in the older house where you could like bring in and like store the potatoes. True. And you have like, something like that. Like, again, that's like, what is your lifestyle, and how can we build to support your lifestyle and make it epic, right? Like, is it like this amazing like cutting room or like garden space? So, we could go in a million different directions.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, totally.
I do like the paned windows that have I've saved a lot
like
of
the
those.
smaller
Yes, the
panes.
smaller
Yeah,
panes.
a little bit more farmhousey.
Because a lot of the houses that are built in the 2000s there seem a little too modern for the spaces that they're in. Like, they're just like slapped
Plus, even if we
together.
got into a new build,
We'd have
we
to
would want
redo
to
it.
change it anyways.
So
So
right.
it just
it doesn't make sense
Well,
for
feel
us.
free to send me anything that you're looking at, and I
Well,
can
we're
like, give
going
you my
next
2
week.
cents. And
We're going next week to look at 8 properties that we narrowed it down to.
Oh, that's exciting.
So I will keep you posted. But I do feel like I want to get a vibe of the space while we're there. And also in Tennessee, you can build without certain permits on your property for if we wanted to build a guest house. It could be a cozy cottage for people to come and stay, which I'm like, wait, you don't need all these restrictions to build?
It's going to be such a breeze for you guys. I mean, it's just going to be night and day.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to that. But I'm also looking forward to your expertise because like after all this work we've done and I don't get to enjoy my kitchen that I wanted so long in Pasadena.
Know. It's going to be so beautiful. Well, you'll have the photo. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, I better get those pictures first.
What would you say for someone that is looking for houses, knowing that they're going to renovate? What are some key things to kind of look out for that are must-haves before jumping into a place?
Yeah, I mean, ceiling heights. I think, that's something that's really hard to change. I think window size and location, is there a lot of natural light coming in? What are you looking at?
Because what if we see something, because a few of the kitchens I have saved have some window to the outdoors that I can make it bigger.
Okay.
But if they don't have any windows on some of the rooms, is that because you can't, because they could have certain piping and
Or
you
the
couldn't
kitchen's
add a
in the
window?
middle, or however they...
Right. I don't have any of those saved. All my kitchens have some type of access to the light outside.
Like there's a window, yeah.
But like, how would you know if you wouldn't be able to add a window to a room?
Well, you don't really know. I mean, anything can be done, right? At the end of the day, it's just the cost.
Yeah.
So,
true.
if you want to have to move pipes or if you, for structurally, typically, so a good rule of thumb is if there's a window existing, you can make it taller without triggering any structural upgrades. But if you make it wider, that triggers structural upgrades.
Okay, good.
And I know in LA, because we have such strict seismic codes, I don't know how it is in Nashville. Maybe it's not as big of a deal to go wider as it is in LA.
I truly don't know.
But yeah, I think that, typically, unless there's like another room there, you can probably pretty much do what you need to do. It's just going to cost you. So
what else should we look out for?
Okay, so we have ceiling heights, we have windows. I would think just like the overall like flow of the space, like how do you move through the house? Like I love the Pasadena house because it had kind of a formal entry. You had like a, its own defined entry, which I think is so important, especially with kids. So you have a place to drop all your stuff. I love that you had like a separate, like I like when houses have like the common spaces are kind of on one side and then the living spaces are on the other. So there's like an acoustical separation of noise, right? And so
we don't love open floor plans.
I don't either.
So we're not looking at any that have open floor plans. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, I'd have to add a wall and
Well, we did that. And
we did that in the first house and we realized how much from the living room that we smelled the food 24/7 of like whatever we were making or warming up.
well, from one side, you can see directly
everything.
through
Like
everything
whole
all
house.
the way.
Yeah,
So-
I don't like that either.
Yeah. And then we didn't know that until we went through it and living in it
yeah.
for the small amount of time we lived in it. We said we're not doing an open floor plan again.
Yeah. I mean, it's great if you're living in New York City in a loft and you don't have kids or something like that. But it just, again, it comes down to your lifestyle and children. And so, yeah, I like more traditional, I think, classical layouts, which have like separate living rooms. I think nowadays it's really common to combine your dining room and your kitchen. That's just kind of how we live. We don't really live with formal dining rooms anymore. So I have a lot of clients, if they have a formal dining room, we like transform it into like a modern day parlor or something like that, or, maybe a home office. So I think it's really, layout is great.
I loved our dining room and I love that it was going to be like a restaurant. You could shut the doors. Our dining room was, how can you explain it? Like there were walls around it, but it wasn't its own room, right?
Well,
in the
Pasadena house, well, there was 2 large archways into the space, and then like a large arched window that like looked out onto like the front yard and the view. So I feel like it was a very symmetrical room, and our plan was to design that. Like my belief is dining rooms are usually used at nighttime, right, for celebratory things. So like I always like to make it a little bit moodier, or if you're having a dinner party, like how do you really make it feel intimate and cozy and like special? So yeah, I feel like with the arches, and then we were going to do a round table, and it felt like everything had symmetry and I don't know, just a beautiful view. So, yeah.
I'm praying that whoever buys our house really enjoys it and is like so loves all the love that we put into it,
They
because I'm
will.
like, I'm just hoping some family is in there and like their
Yeah.
kids are running around enjoying the garden. I just think about that. I'm like, okay, God, we didn't even know. Okay, during the remodel too, we had stopped drinking. I mean, we drink very little now,
very
like
here or
a
there,
glass
but-
of wine here or there.
Yeah.
But when we first started the remodel, I would say we were like not heavy drinkers, but we would drink every time we would go to a
If you
restaurant.
have Mexican food, you have margaritas.
Right.
If you have a
Everything
steak,
was a
we're having
drink
some
with it.
wine.
Right.
So there's a pair.
And so our bar was a big focal point. And then through it, we said, well, do you think it should be like a smoothie bar? Or like, what should we turn it into? We tried to do like a coffee station. So I feel like as the remodel because it's taken a while, it's like we've been able to change things based on
Your lifestyle.
what our
change.
actual lifestyle
Yeah.
is.
Same with the TV room.
Right.
Right.
When we first started, we're like, okay, I guess we'll have a TV. And then throughout all this, we got rid of our TV. And we're like, we don't have a TV in our house anymore. And she's
Yeah.
like, okay, great. We can do something else with this area.
Yeah, totally. Going back to the parlor room I did for a client in Brentwood, and it was one of my favorite rooms because basically it was the formal dining room, and they wanted to make a space where they could all be in there together. It was, I think they had 4 children, and so we had a table that was dedicated for puzzles because one of them really loved puzzles, and then in the middle we custom designed like this round coffee table with 4 club chairs because they love to play mahjong. So that was in like the middle of the space, and then they had an area with like drum kits and guitars because like one of the kids was really into music, and then like a beautiful club chair where they could like read the paper in like the other corner. So it was like they could all be in there together, having their own shared space, doing stuff that was tech free, which I really loved. And he said that was like one of the most used spaces, and they just
gosh, I
loved
love
it.
that.
Yeah. So it's like, kind of getting a little bit more creative with like, what can I do to support my habits and my loves, right? Like, do you paint? Do you write? Like, what do you do? And how can we like support that the
I
best
love
way
that.
in the house?
And not just thinking, well, everyone has a TV room, so I guess put a TV
Yeah.
here because you haven't thought
With
any
a
differently
sectional
of it.
sofa and
Right.
Yeah.
I know, I love, and you've really got us thinking creatively about different things. Like, what about this? And that would never cross my mind for certain things like that.
Or what are we doing? And then how can we utilize that room to what we're doing?
For
And
example, our primary bath, it's a pretty big square footage, I would say, up there. And one thing is me and Anthony never take baths. And I was like, well, I need to put the bathtub here. And he said, well, if you don't take baths, why are you putting a bath in? And I don't know. I'm just like, I guess I thought every bathroom should have a bathtub.
Yeah. No. Not
You're like,
necessarily.
no, it doesn't.
Actually, not a lot of people want baths anymore. So we do a lot of just like walk-in larger showers, especially for master suites. In the kids' rooms, there's usually a bathtub. It's nice for resale to have like a bathtub or two
Right.
in
And
the
then
house.
Poppy's bathtub had a bathtub.
Yep.
So I was like, oh, I can do all the kids' baths in there.
Totally.
But for us, it was going to be a big steam shower. We have a bench. We can sit in there. And then we also have our sauna. So for us, it's like we're getting that heat exposure, but we're not doing it from a bathtub. So just realizing how you live. And then it saved a lot of space because we weren't burning all that space with a bathtub. And I had a bigger vanity. And
Yeah, exactly.
to show the final project when it's done.
I know it still hurts you inside
know.
talking about it. You're like, oh, that I'll never get to use. But hey,
I know all that effort, and I know.
I know,
It's okay.
but it does excite me about thinking about this from a different perspective when we go to tenancy is that having that flexibility of really you have to do the light, like you said, where the location is, and then you can truly make things. It doesn't have to be all at once, but you can do upgrades here and there and make it how you actually want to live.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are phasing a project, I think it's great to have a comprehensive, holistic plan, even if you can't accomplish that all at once, so that it feels harmonious and it's not disjointed. Whether that's like a floor plan because you're eventually going to like move walls or what have you, or just basically planning out the use of space first, and then kind of just choosing what you're able to, like budget-wise, tackle.
I love that.
that makes a lot more sense. I don't think I would
We
have.
never ever thought about
I
that.
probably would have just been, okay, let's
Just
what's the
focus on this
kitchen?
room.
And you're like,
Just do
okay,
the
this
bathroom.
room. And you're
That's
like,
so good.
wait
Yeah.
a minute.
Because then it's all disjointed, right? Because then if you found something that you should have taken down, and you find that sometimes during construction, it would have been nice to know that with the whole floor plan.
Right.
Like design the whole house and then just work on it piece by piece.
Yeah, exactly. And
in
like
a sense.
like Pasadena, we were going to phase it, right? And then we were thinking like, okay, does it make sense for us to do the removing the back stair now? And it was like, yes, because from a construction standpoint and structural standpoint, to go back through and have to do all of that in phase 2 didn't make sense, but so we'll do that, but we won't like complete the bar finishes. Like we'll just stub it out, and then when we're ready, we can do the millwork. And so there's ways to, if you want to lean on your designer or architect or general contractor, that makes sense from like a sequential standpoint, from a building perspective, that will also work with your budget. So
I love that. Would you say a lot of your clients, or okay, so for example, if you were to redo a kitchen, do your clients just, because we lived through it the first time and it was really, really mentally hard for us. But I think if we did it now, and if I didn't want to leave the land, I was trying to think like, would you build a guest house first and then redo the kitchen? Or what do people normally do?
like if to not be displaced and uncomfortable,
Right,
like
and to
live
not
without
like go to a
kitchen.
rental house like we've done with this one.
Yeah, I mean, kitchens are hard, right? Because
Everything, your food and
everything is in there. And also from like a building perspective, every single trade has to be in the kitchen, because you're touching like tile, you're touching plumbing, you're touching, all of the systems in the house. Unlike a bedroom, you might just have like a painter in there or something else. So it's a lot faster. So kitchens just are a little bit more complex and they take longer. But yeah, if there is an opportunity to have like a temporary kitchen somewhere in the house set up, but the way that we like to work is we'll design everything, we'll get it cost out from the general contractor, we'll purchase all of the materials and appliances and everything. So it's like sitting there, ready to go. We have all the permits, so we don't actually start demolition until everything is there, so that we can minimize delays or gaps and like waiting for materials or waiting for permitting, which is just going to, elongate the timeline and make it a little bit more painful. So even for projects at large too, that's how we like to work as well, so that we can really just minimize the disruption for clients.
So it's pretty quick once you get demo going.
Yeah, it should be pretty quick. Depending on the permitting process, you have to like get inspections and all of that. But if we're waiting on tile because, oh shoot, we forgot to, order that, or the plumbing fixture is 8 weeks out and we can't finish that, then that's super painful while you're sitting in that process.
We had a lot of that with our first house, but I think a lot of it was COVID plus like a mix. It was like a mix of COVID plus like...
COVID was a really good excuse.
No, but it seems like our walls were open or like the windows weren't there. So it just was like a lot. And we were living in the house. Like we were living on the bottom floor and it was just a tough.
Totally. I mean, I moved into my house that I recently bought and I redid the kitchen without a kitchen because I was like, I can't afford 2 rents.
Yeah.
Right. So, my son and I were living out it. We had like a Yeti cooler and like, I think I had like my little like camper cook stove.
Did you have a hot plate? That's what we had.
I had like a hot plate. Yeah.
We would go in the garage and make our coffee in the
microwave.
We had a microwave, a hot plate. I mean, we didn't even cook it. We would just order food. That was when we were really eating out a lot. And I feel like it affected us health-wise too, because we were like, well, we can't cook, so let's just eat every night somewhere.
Totally.
It does take an effect on your mental health. A remodel is no joke. That's the thing. It's like crazy to see like with the fires, just like the neighborhoods that are going to have to go through all of this. It's just...
You guys know. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of houses at once. It's, And it just, honestly, it's preparation and organization is so key, because there's so many moving parts. There's so many different vendors and people that you can't control that you're relying on, right? So just trying to have that all, under control as much as possible will just make the process go so much smoother.
If someone's looking for an interior designer, what are questions that you think are good for the first phone call to see if they're a good fit?
Great question. I mean, I think our industry is so nuanced. So like we are an interior design firm, but we also do a lot of large remodels and construction. And so I think, depending on what your scope is, if you do have to do construction, say it's a kitchen renovation, I would ask them like what their experience is, like what they're comfortable with. I would ask them for a set of drawings that they would issue to a general contractor, just so you could see the level of detail and information. Even if you don't know what it should be or not, like maybe you can consult with, a general contractor or somebody and just get like an opinion. I would ask them how they organize projects. I would ask them how they budget projects and how they communicate budget changes to you. I would also, just ask them for references from clients and, ask for like 3 or 4 references. I mean, we all do multiple projects, and of course there's always stuff that comes up and we try to move through them the best we can, but I think it's that quote, it's how well you walk through the fire. It's like things are going to come up, there's going to be problems, how do you solve them and deal with them and communicate them to your clients? And so it's really just about trying to gauge their professionalism, what their exact skill set is. And if somebody hasn't had experience doing ground up construction, I don't know if I would feel that confident hiring them to do a new build for the first time. Like, you don't want to be the guinea pig. So, just really trying to fit what your scope of work is with what their experience and skill set is.
How do you feel about new builds versus buying something old and redoing it?
I think they're both great. Yeah, I think they're both great. I think new builds are much easier from a contracting perspective, because what happens with renovations is that you really don't know what you're working with until you can demo and open up all the walls. Like from a structural standpoint, and also from like a plumbing standpoint, electrical standpoint. So like everything that's considered MEPs, which is mechanical, electrical, plumbing, which is like what's in your walls and making your house function, is a huge line item expense. Like the electrical line items in a home can be $60,000 alone, and it's like not something you're actually enjoying. So like all of those systems, like your house in Pasadena, we found all like the sewer lines and we had to like deal with all of that old stuff. So we can do a design and we can bid it out, but the likelihood that there's going to be change orders because there's going to be unforeseen things that we're going to find in the walls is much higher than a new build, because we're building it, right?
Right.
And it's just, you can get a price from a GC that's going to be the price unless you make changes as a homeowner. And the building process too is just a lot simpler. Like, for example, the house in Altadena that we lost, when we opened up the walls, there was a lot of dry rot. Like, a lot of stuff had to be reframed that we weren't anticipating. And then that just slows down the process. Not only is it more money, but it slows down the process. So, both have their own merit. I think a ground up construction takes a little bit longer because you have to do site work, which is like all of the grading of the land.
The plumbing can get out there.
Well, it's really the foundation. So in order to put a foundation in, you have to like dig, and then you have to compact so it can like hold the weight of the house. So there's a lot of like site work that needs to be done, and then foundational stuff that needs to be done, and a lot more structural that you can avoid with a renovation. So they both have their pros
What
and
is the
cons.
average on a new construction build, typically?
I mean, it depends on the city. Yeah, I would think it's, anywhere between like 600 to 1,200 per square foot, depending on your level of finishes. Was that the question? Like, how much does it cost?
Or just from start to finish, the timeline.
timeline.
The timeline. I would say it's probably, if everything's designed and you have permits in hand, I would say, depending on the size of the house, like 12 to 24 months. Something like 12 might be a little aggressive.
12 months to do a brand new.
1 to 2 years. Right.
Yeah.
But I wonder if
that's not
you
taking
did a
into
new
account
build.
all the design work
Yeah.
Right.
and the permitting work, which would be
which would add on.
like
I see.
another 6
Okay.
months. But like just literally building it, yeah.
Got it. Okay. Oh, that's not
I
terrible.
mean, again, it just depends on the size of the house. If it's like 2,000 square feet versus like 10,000 square feet, but.
What would you think for if we were trying to build like a little guest house on our property? Like, what do you think? Would you do 2-story, or would you? I'm thinking small, just like maybe 2 bedrooms. I'm trying to think if our family came to visit, or if we had to live there and we had to remodel stuff.
Well, 2 stories are more cost effective because it's cheaper to go up than to go out because of the foundation and the footprint. So you don't have as much concrete and you have more timber, but it's usually a little bit cheaper. So are you asking for like cost per square foot?
No, I'm just trying to think of like if we were to
do
I guess when we're looking at places, like, are we trying to see like how much space we would need
To
do
build
that?
some type of guest house or...
I'm trying to think of all this now because of the whole, maybe we could build something else on the side too. There's all that possibility.
Well, it took my dad 3 or 4 years to build his guest house.
But he built it by himself.
But he did it by himself.
Oh, he did it? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. He's very handy and he does a lot of work. And I have other family that does like drywall. And so he was bringing in, my
All the
grandpa was an
family
electrician.
members.
So yeah.
Awesome.
But he was doing that as he was working. And, but
when he had time to like put to it. That's
and the
cool.
family would help out. But it was my sister's little guest house.
That's cute.
They did pretty well. Yeah. But for $80K,
Yeah,
I think, yeah.
that's great.
And it's, she was able to live there. It's
Yeah.
adorable too. Okay, so what are your top tips for if someone's living in a small space? Maybe it's a rental space that they can't do they can't remodel or they can't
Right.
make permanent changes.
Yeah.
What do you recommend for making that feel bigger and more
Homey.
functional?
I think bigger. I mean, I always love to paint out a space, walls and ceiling the same color. I think if you can go with like more of a monochromatic color story.
I
So
took your tip for that for Poppy's room. I painted the ceiling. I was like, oh my God, I feel so artsy right now.
did you like it?
I loved it.
Did you? Yeah, because it's kind of like, you know, you don't want to disrupt your eye. So if everything's kind of flowing and the same, like it's going to feel a little bit more expansive. Whereas you have like a color on the wall and then a color on the ceiling, it's kind of just going to feel like a little bit, you're going to see those lines more defined. So I think, yeah, that would be like an easy trick. I think also it comes down, in my opinion, to clutter and just having great storage solutions, you know, so that
Can you recommend any for specific examples for anyone that really stands out to you?
yeah, like if you have a TV stand, like have a closed console cabinet that you can like use double, like try to do double duty. Or if it's an ottoman by your sofa, maybe it can lift up and you can have like storage for blankets in there. So just try to think of things that kind of can play double duty for you and to minimize the number of pieces in the space. Like I think spaces can feel small and cramped when there's like 5 pieces of furniture versus like maybe 3 larger pieces of furniture, you know, things like that. So I think thinking about objects as visual information, if you can minimize the visual information, then that will kind of expand the space, actually.
What are some places that you like that are more affordable furniture places?
Like to source from?
Yeah.
Well, all of the kind of the big box stores like CB2, West Elm, Zara Home actually has some really good pieces. They produce a lot of their things in Spain, and they have really great leathers and like solid woods.
Good to know.
Yeah, and not a lot of people know about Zara Home. You know, Eternity Modern is kind of a replica type place. You know, again, going back to value and resale and quality, I feel like there's so many antiques that are so well priced, like at auction. I just got a Swarter's auction book to the office the other day, and I was like looking through all these gorgeous like Chippendale and like old, you know, case pieces and chairs, and they're constructed so well. The wood that they used at the time, like we can't even get the quality wood like that anymore. So you're paying probably, you know, like crate and barrel prices for these beautiful heirloom antiques that are so well constructed. And they also just add a lot of style and character to a space. So
where do you find these antiques? I've never gone antique shopping.
Or can
because
anyone
I truthfully
just
don't know how to do it.
bid on these, or
yeah, anyone can bid on them. I mean, there's like online like sites
Like
that
First Dibs? Or is
First
that-
Dibs has an auction arm. Like First Dibs is going to be higher because you're buying from a broker or you're buying from a store, right?
Oh, got it. Okay.
So this is more like going direct to auction, where like a lot of these stores are sourcing from. You know, sometimes you might need to refinish a piece or get something reupholstered, but like that's easy to like YouTube, right? You can like staple gun some
So
new
where are you
fabric on
going
there.
to? What is this? Auction?
There's multiple auctions. Like it depends. But I would just like Google maybe in your area. There's always going to be like in LA. There's some local auctions. Some specialize in like mid-century modern. Some specialize in like more, I don't know, like Chippendale or you know different periods. So just start to educate yourself, but don't discount that, because I feel like there's kind of like a trend of like nobody, like a high boy is like a tall dresser that was like, you know, maybe in the more like Georgian homes or things like that you can probably get for like $800, you know?
Oh, wow.
And
it's
they're
probably
stunning.
Solid wood.
It's solid wood. Like I have one in my bedroom that I love, and it's just, and that mixed with more modern pieces, you know, like I have a very modern bed that I designed, and like then I have that piece and that juxtaposition between like a cleaner line and then something that's more ornate and carved with like ormolu, or, you know, it has some like fauteuil, you know, characteristics. It's just, I don't know, it makes those two items kind of jump because they're so disparate, but they also work together. So that would be a recommendation also.
What about if you're going, because I saw that Pasadena has their little antique malls.
Yes.
And I've never been. Me and Jaden keep saying we want to do it together. But I feel like, what would I look for when I'm looking in there? I really want some really pretty glassware from I feel like all my plates right now are all white.
Mm-hmm.
And I want some that have something like of a little bit more of a country feel, but pretty and elevated still. What would I do if I'm looking for that? Just like go to an antique shop and
Absolutely.
see what I feel?
I love that Pasadena antique shop. I love the ones that have multiple booths because you have it's like a one-stop shop with so many different vendors.
Am I looking for anything particular? Like, am I trying to read the back?
Do you
and
go
see
on
if
your
it's
gut and you're like, I really love this piece, and you just figure it out?
I mean, it's not like you're collecting to collect, right?
No,
Unless you're like
it
looking
doesn't
for
need to be authentic, or I wouldn't even know what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, Wedgwood or whatever. If it's fine bone china, you can kind of Google that if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But I think it's like whatever moves you. If you want something that feels like a little bit more heirloom, or like it has.
I want something that doesn't feel like a white plate every time we're serving.
Totally. I bought a new set of dishes actually for Thanksgiving in there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it was really great.
Oh, I love it. And what did you just walk through the booths and see what
I just walked through the booths and I just loved it. It was like blue and orange and it had like a little bit of like gold like detailing around it, and they were just stunning.
So what was the price that you paid for that?
Like
what's considered a good price for that type of dishes?
I think the dishes were like $15 each or $10 each or something like that.
That's cheaper than if I was to get it at some other spot.
Yeah, and it's also great for the environment.
True.
Because it's, there's so much
thrown
out there.
Out,
yeah. So you're also recycling that, and it has so much character. And like I like the wabi sabi. I like the imperfections. I like like it just shows that there's been a hand there, that there's been time. That for me, like if there's a tiny little chip or a crack, and if it's still sound, like that doesn't matter to me on like a set of dishes. So
what about for furniture? How do you know if you're getting something that's well made? I
base it off the weight. I'm just
heft it.
Feels heavy. I think it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I could just like sit in it, make sure it doesn't wobble, like see what the joinery is. And even if it does, like there's so many like refinisher places or like furniture places that can just probably like reglue it and clamp it together and restore it, if it's something that you really love. Like I've bought sets of chairs off auction before too, and like maybe 6 are great, but 2 are haggard, and then the seats needed to be re-ruched or something. Like there's always ways that you can get them repaired. So yeah, I think just go out and just see what you love. I grew up in Maine, and there's so many antique stores, and that was like one of the things I did with my mom. Like every weekend, we were always antiquing.
Really?
Yeah, so it's fun, and there's so much character. There's so much history. There's you find old photo albums with like people's family photo. Like it's just
What's
beautiful.
the difference between an antique shop and a thrift shop? Because I used to thrift shop all the time, but I feel like the dishware is like sometimes junky there. Like you wouldn't.
It's just a little higher brow. I think like I don't really know what the actual difference is, but I think like an antique store, the purveyor.
Are they like looking for something specific? They're buying the pieces. It's not just like you're dropping them off and you never see them
Exactly.
again.
It's not like a donation kind of like thrift and maybe like Angel Thrift Store in Palm Springs versus like somebody who's actually out there sourcing and trying to find things of merit that maybe have, not that they have to have a crazy provenance, like this came out of such and such house, but like what the style is, what the year is, and somewhat some information about what the piece is. Texas has a really, really great antique fair twice a year called like Roundup, which is like a massive.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I told her, I want to go with you next time, but I have no idea what I'm looking for with antiques. She was getting the coolest pieces.
Yeah, they're so fun. Yeah. I mean, I think some safe bets are like side chairs, right? Because they're easy to place. I think the harder things to place are like the bigger case pieces. Or like beds or things like that, of course. But there's so many great paintings or smalls or, like plates.
Okay, I'm very inspired to do this now. I felt like it just was
a little
out of my
intimidating.
realm. Yeah, I'm like, I've never been to an antique shop before.
I do feel like you do a good job, though, and you gravitate towards more of what you like, and you mix it, and you're picking colors. The rental came out great.
Totally.
I'm just like, I'm living in it. It just this looks good.
Cute.
Love the colors.
We did a broccoli brown for the dining room from Farrell.
You did the ceiling on that one too.
Yeah, and
really
that was
like that.
Every time people come into our dining room, they're like, this paint color is cool. I'm like, really? I think it's broccoli brown. Do you guys like it? But I'm always like I feel very flattered when someone's like, I like the pink. I'm like, thank you. I took a lot of time to think about this.
Yeah, that's awesome. And also if you're buying a lot of big box stuff, like to go to like even the Rose Bowl or the Pasadena Flea and just have a few little objects, that really elevates a space too, into something that feels a little bit more sophisticated.
I love that. I'm inspired. We got to make a thrift shop.
I know she's already
Like,
trying to plan when she can go.
I bet there's some great ones in Nashville.
Oh, yes, for sure.
And that's
There
the
has to
fun
be.
thing. Like whenever I'm in Europe, I love to go to like Belgium and like go to their thrift stores because they have so many different things.
Are they antique shops there?
Yeah, they're
It's
antique shops.
okay,
Yeah,
so you
everywhere.
just-
I remember.
What do you do? Do you Google them before? Or do you have recommendations from ones?
Yeah,
you
I don't
recommend?
really know like off the top of my head, but I remember in college, like I was in Europe for a while and I literally had bought these set of dishes that I just loved and I had them in my suitcase and I was like carrying them around for like 3 months.
You're like, these are making it back with me no matter
Totally.
what.
I don't know what happened to them, but yeah, it's always great like in different places because it's, there's just so much like California is so different from what you find in Maine, which is it's so steeped in history and culture, which is also really interesting. So, yeah,
Can you give me a antique shop that you like off the top of your head that's I can visit here?
Yes. So next to the Pasadena Antique Mall,
Okay.
there's an antique store called I think it's T.L. Gurley Antiques.
Okay.
And he's kind of like a dealer's dealer, and he is constantly getting in like new stuff. He gets in like paintings and furniture and what have you, and he's like super fun, and he has really great stuff. And he sources a lot from like estates, like when people pass away or they want to sell off like the whole lot or things like that. So he'll just get in like a lot of weird, cool stuff.
Do you ever go to estate sales?
I don't so much. I have some friends that do. I just feel like I don't have time on the weekends with like my son and basketball and all that. But
There was one house recently that it was kind of near the house that the Father of the Bride house.
Yeah.
It was in that neighborhood.
We were walking by it, and there's just like this long
huge
line.
line. I'm like, what's happening there?
Yeah. And we
Did
were
you
did you
estate
guys?
sale.
Oh, did you go in?
No, but it was
No.
such a long line.
yeah.
But then that got me thinking, should we go to the estate sales, especially in this beautiful neighborhood?
Yeah.
There might be some really cool heirloom pieces.
Totally. And that you're going to get it even cheaper than.
Oh, because they're just trying to get rid of it.
Yeah, like that's kind of like
Oh.
the first line, right? And then it goes into like an antique store or like and then it goes into like a First Dibs type store.
see.
So it's like there's like a food chain.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We're going to be estate sale shopping on the weekends now. This is kind of fun.
Add it
Yeah.
to the
It's like the
list.
treasure hunt. of
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
totally. It is like hunting.
What's one area of the home people often overlook, but it can make a big impact?
I would say probably the powder room. I feel like that's a room that your guests are going to be in the most, and it's also a small enough footprint that it's not going to break the bank to really kind of go hog wild in there. And it's also, I always talk about powder rooms being like little jewel boxes. Like you can kind of go a little wackadoodle and wild because it's not like you have to like live in it all the time. So if you really wanted to go bold with like a crazy wallpaper or paint color, like you can close the door and like not have to see it all the time. But like when you open it up, it's just this kind of like wash of like fun. So
That's what we did in the Pasadena house.
yeah, that's
love
awesome. Yeah.
It was a really fun wallpaper.
But there was a stone. Was it
The stone
We
was
had the
really
stone
pretty.
with the.
The stone sink, yeah. And then we did the, it was Zack and Fox wallpaper, I think we did.
It was a maroon, wasn't it? With like blue?
Yeah, maroon with like kind of, yeah. And then we did like the same powder coated sconces that we had got off Etsy. Etsy is also a really great resource for budget friendly items, just to add that in. But yeah, I feel like powder rooms are super fun. You can just kind of let it go wild, like a kid with crayons on the wall kind of idea. Yeah.
What would you foresee for Poppy's room at our new place? Because I never really got to do her. I mean, I did it cute enough with the pink and how I decorated it. But with Elliot's room, you walk into his and it's like, whoa, his is styled.
Yeah,
like
his is a statement.
his is like really cool. And with Poppy, I feel like what would be something that you think would be cute for her room?
I mean, I love the idea of being able to build like a bed with like a, some type of climbing little like cabin-y space, or like there's a 2-tier thing where she can have like a reading nook, and maybe there's like, I don't know, there's just like something that she can have her own little cabin or like hideaway space in the bedroom.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that could be really fun for
I know
her.
we're like, if we have another baby, we don't know if one of them would have bunk beds down the line. I don't know. Do you do a lot of remodels with bunk beds?
Yeah, bunk beds
Are
are.
they safe? Do
Yeah.
let the kids fall
Oh,
on
I've
them?
fallen off them.
I know, I've
for
fallen off
sure.
of them before
Yeah.
too. So I'm like,
Yeah.
are they still considered safe? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, the railing and
I
Yeah.
think it's okay.
And they're not like little when you're putting
Yeah.
them up there. But
Kids are bouncy.
Yeah.
we've survived.
Yeah, we survived.
Well, thank you so much for being here,
Oh, yeah, this was
especially.
Yes.
super
Thank you.
fun. Thank you guys for inviting me.
Yes, I
Yeah.
learned so much, and I feel like every time I sit down with you, I can always talk forever because it's just so interesting.
Same. You
It's
guys-
like style, but for your home, and it's so I love it.
Awesome. Thanks,
Cool.
guys.
Thank
Oh,
you.
oh, wait. Where can people find
Okay.
you?
They can find us on Instagram at Tatum Kendrick Design, or our website is Tatum Kendrick Design. We're located in Los Angeles, but we do projects nationally across the country. And yeah, we do everything from ground up builds to large renovations to just interior design. We're an integrated studio, which basically means we're interior designers and we're also interior architects. So we kind of combine both disciplines in our studio. We're also on The Expert. If you don't want to hire, full design services and you just want to consult with us, you can book a, hour or 2 hour session, and you can book that as many times as you want, and we can help you with your project in whatever capacity that you need.
Also, I've also shopped for a few items on The Expert because I love the way they source their.
Me too.
I found some cool brands that way. It's just like nice because they had all the cool items in one spot. It's like there's no real database for that.
I agree. It's very edited, and you know that whatever's on there has kind of been vetted, whereas First Dibs can be just so overwhelming. Yeah.
I love that. I sorted by lamps. I bought our 2 lamps for our room like that. And
yeah. They do a really good job.
Yeah, we love The Expert. That's actually how I found you.
Oh, really?
Yes. Did I not tell you that?
Oh, I don't think so. Or maybe I forgot.
I went to the website and found any of the ones that I liked their style the most, like their projects. I showed him. I was like, which of these do you like the best projects? I had a phone call with one of them. Didn't really vibe as much. I felt I had a phone call with you. I'm like, yes, I want to hire her. I love her. It's just I felt the connection. I felt like you really understood what we wanted. So
awesome. Well, I'm glad you found me.
Yes.
I love working with you guys. You're the best clients. You really are.
Oh, really?
You
Tell us
are.
more.
No, you're so understanding. You take, feedback really well. I feel like we have a really great rapport. I think it's like, it's a long process. It's a complex process. And I feel like you really trust us. And that just makes all the difference too.
I'm excited for the final result and for whoever's going to live there.
Yeah, no, it will be a blessing for anyone who's going to be there. We've kind of just offered this up into the world, especially in this time of disaster.
Yeah.
Like, that's really going to support somebody in a huge way.